So here we are once again at Sydney Motorsports Park Summer Night Series in the daytime. So as it turns out, the event was supposed to be Friday evening and Saturday evening, but because of double booking, which is, I don't know how that's happened, but anyway, it has, we're doing a daytime event, and then there'll be a short break, and then we'll have a nighttime event. So we'll have still the same schedule. It was planned for the Friday and the Saturday, but it'll only take part on the Friday. So we have some daytime racing, and then we'll have evening racing. But more importantly, we've got wet weather. So yeah, I don't know whether it's gonna stick around or it's gonna dry out. At the moment, it's not raining currently, but the track is completely wet all the way around. So we'll just have to wait and see.
In a previous episode, I'd mentioned how the bike felt slow because the power and traction control settings were too restrictive and too safe, making the bike feel underpowered on full lean angle and hard acceleration. So in the time between the opening round and this round, I've made a lot of changes to the traction control settings and the power modes, and now is the first time I've had a chance to test those. But once again, my plans were interrupted by the weather. So with the opening qualifying session being affected by the rain, I was focused more on sort of tiptoeing around the circuit, trying not to make any mistakes with the conditions half wet, half dry, as opposed to feeling how the changes that I'd made had really affected the bike. So once again, I was going into a race with a bike that was untested and using a race to evaluate the changes I'd made. My first impressions were that the bike had indeed gained more power, but there was still a feeling of delay before the power came in, so that made the acceleration feel like it was a rush of power and made the bike hard to ride. So I made more changes again between race 1 and 2, and what I did is increase the throttle reaction time so that the bike felt more responsive on the first touch of throttle, so then I could get some momentum off of the apex of the turn, so then it didn't feel so abrupt and aggressive when the power came in a little stronger shortly after the exit. So after I'd made those initial improvements, it then became apparent that the traction control wasn't to my liking, and what I could feel was the wheel would be able to spin and the bike would step sideways too much before the traction control would start to react. And then when the traction control did come in, it came in too abruptly and made the bike unstable and really pulled the bike back into a line. So I needed to make more changes in that area. So what I did to improve this situation was have the traction control more reactive to the initial slip of the rear tyre, but then reduce how much its effect was during a slide so that the bike was able to stay a little bit sideways out of line. I could steer the bike with the rear, whereas before it would always try and correct the bike completely and stop any amount of wheel spin. Well, it might be a full restart.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. Some years we stay on and continue with the same team, and you know, I've been racing in the British Superbike for just under 15 years. So you know, it's been a regular pattern throughout that length of time to swap brands, swap teams, swap many things. So it's just another step in the story of Josh Brookes at the moment. But yeah, moving away from BMW and now onto Honda, and the very beginning of the story is here in Australia, riding a bike that I've built myself. So a bit of an update on how today's been going. Qualified on pole. I went out on slicks because I didn't have any wets, but fortunately for me, the very last moment of qualifying, the track was nearly dry, so the best tyre to be on was in fact slicks, so I went out on pole. First race, got beat up a bit by Mike Jones and Glenn Allerton, so ended up third, and then the next race got red flagged, and then the final race of the day event was abandoned because of running out of time.
So now we have a short break and then the next event will start, and that will happen under lights as the normal schedule.